Hi knitters, welcome to episode 118 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I am Devin Bentry. You can find me over at KnittyMcPurly.com. I'm Knitty McPurly on Instagram. And if you want to email me, I am Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. If you would like, and you could subscribe and click the thumbs up, that would be awesome. How are you guys doing? I hope everybody has had a great week. I kind of don't know what happened to my week. It was one of those. But I went to Ohio with my oldest daughter. Here's a couple pictures from our trip. We were eating in the car. We were listening to presentations. We were visiting the campus. It was great. I really think that she'll end up there. She loves it. And she wants to study criminal justice and possibly go to law school. We'll see. If anybody knows of any scholarships, send them my way. Finding scholarships is hard, but we're determined. I'm drinking out of my Boston Terrier mug that my family got for me for my birthday. On the back, it has all of the different Boston Terriers. Our dog is a Boston. In case you are new, I do have some new people. Our dog is a blind Boston Terrier. He's 2, and he's just the best dog in the whole world. So anyway, hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a beautiful Sunday. Like, I got up and it was cold, but it felt like it was gonna get nice, and it's just clear and sunny, and I think it's gonna be just a gorgeous, gorgeous day. Okay, progress and shop news. First of all, let's talk about what I'm wearing, okay? This is my Watership sweater, and I've lost a little bit of weight over the past 6 months on purpose because I had gained it after cancer. You can't taste food when you are doing chemo, and then when you can taste food again, you're like, oh my gosh, food is so amazing. So I gained like 15 pounds. So I recently lost that, and I'm realizing that things are a little bit big. So anyway, this sweater you can knit either as a short sleeve or a long sleeve sweater. This one was knit for me by Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Remember this? And she just did such a good job. This is Brooklyn Tweed Loft in Postcard, which if you have not knit with that yarn, I highly recommend it. Like, see how it's kind of gray and it's kind of purple and it's just all different colors. It's amazing. It's Brooklyn Tweed. The color's Postcard, and I think you can get that color in all of their bases, like the Shelter, which is the worsted weight. This is Loft, which is the fingering weight yarn. But they have other ones. And I presume, I have not bought from them in a while. Presumably they still have Postcard because it's just amazing. I can't imagine them retiring such an amazing color. Speaking of color, you might notice that I have some decor. Most of these have been sold. I just haven't shipped them yet. But the color collection is here. And I showed this last week, didn't I? And I didn't have the mini skeins up in the Fathom colorway yet. You guys had so many good suggestions, and I'm going to talk about them in the comments section. But when I showed my navy blue, my really, really gorgeous, beautiful, amazing navy blue, I thought, what am I gonna name this color? And I ended up going with Fathom because fathom is a word I think of just deep water, but also to fathom something. Like, I just love the word. It has such a great, whatever that is. It's just a great word. But I did get a lot of really, really good suggestions. So anyway, these are currently available in my shop. Today is Sunday, March 5th, and they will ship out tomorrow. The ones that I have in stock, there's a couple left that are in stock and can ship tomorrow. So if you want to go over and grab one of those, that would be great. If you get there and there's none left, just click on where it says in stock, and it will give you an option for pre-order, and you can pre-order them if you miss them. Because these are 20 gram minis. So there's 13 20 gram minis. And what that means is just over 1,200 yards of yarn. It's a sweater quantity. Depending on what sweater you're making and what size you are, it could be a sweater quantity. Here is what I'm hoping that someone will do. So the Vesper sweater, the test starts next week. My testers have been gathering up their yarn and they're all very excited, and so am I. But I am really hoping that somebody knits a Vesper sweater with one color of mohair and all different color stripes. How amazing would that be? I think that would be just the coolest. And then as, you know, I was thinking like, how would you do that? Because this stripe up here, you're not going to use very much, so you could reuse it. This could be like 2 short stripes could be the same color. And, you know, depending on your size, once you got to the largest stripe, you could use a color where there's 2 that are similar, like pewter and morel are just not that different, you know, so that if you did need to switch, it wouldn't be noticeable. Anyway, I think that would be awesome. Some of the people who bought these told me what they were going to make. Some people are going to make scrappy socks. It would make an amazing shawl. Yeah, it's fingering weight yarn, so you can do a ton of things with it. It would be great for socks if you are a sock knitter. Some of you I know are like hardcore on the socks. Okay, also, I have updated the website with current quantities of what is in stock. As always, if you go, and I had a few testers who got a little confused, so I just wanted to explain to you how my website works. When you go to the color of yarn that you want, you can choose that drop-down box, and it will show you all of the different weights. And if the thing that you want is not available, you can just scroll down a little more to where it says that yarn weight and pre-order, and I will dye it for you. It just takes a couple days more. Every now and then I have to, you know, reorder something and it might take a few more days, but I did it like that. And not everyone does this. A lot of dyers, especially small dyers like me, will put things on the website as if it's all in stock, and then a month later you get it. And I just don't like that. Like, I don't want you to be separated from your money for longer than you have to be. So I want you, if you're pre-ordering it, I want you to know you're pre-ordering it, and then you can be happily surprised when it comes in 1 week instead of 3. You know, you don't want to expect it to come in a few days and then it comes in 3 weeks. I've had that happen, and I just don't like that at all. So I like to have it differentiated so that you know, yes, I have this right now, or I have to dye this specially for you. So, and that option is also nice if you need a whole sweater quantity, because that way you know that all of the skeins go together and you can, you know, go from one to the next without any big differences. That's always nice. Oh, okay. So the past 2 weeks, we have been talking about yarn management and color work. And I have been talking about my Shasta sweater that I am working on, and this is a pattern that is not available yet. I'm a designer, and so whenever I'm knitting something, it's in its design phases, design phase. So I posted a picture of this from our trip. I did get some time to work on it in the car, and I got a little further on the 3rd row of rainbows. I've got my little Arkansas stitch marker, progress keeper in there. And so you can see that I'm a little bit further there. But yeah, so I didn't do a ton on this, but it is so much fun. It's a challenge. Like I've said before, it's not, you know, when this comes out, it is not going to be a first colorwork sweater. Definitely not. But I had a lovely knitter message me and say, you know, you should mention that a great first colorwork sweater would be the Faucette. Faucette is my most popular knitting pattern. I sell that pattern every single day, especially overseas because it's in a few different languages, and a lot of people do speak English, and a lot of knitters who maybe don't necessarily do much in English in their regular lives, they knit in English because there's so many patterns available in English. But I get orders from all over the world for the Faucette. It's a very easy sweater. It's also so fun because you're never really doing anything for very long. And the things that you're switching between are very easy. The sections of stranded color work are very small. The mosaic color work is more prominent. And mosaic color work is super easy to do. You're just slipping stitches essentially. And it's so interesting to read your comments because there are some people who've knit many, many colorwork sweaters and they're like, yeah, I think I could do 4 colors at one time. Then there's other people who are like, I've never knit a sweater. Like that just sounds so daunting. And so it depends where you are and where you want to start. And, like if I'd say the Faucette is good for somebody who has knit a sweater before, but wants to do a first colorwork sweater. It would be a great place to start. But yeah, I've been working on wholesale orders. I've been dyeing a lot of yarn. I've been doing a lot of labeling and stuff like that. But also my palette cleanser. And I love that I didn't really explain what I meant by palette cleanser, but you all knew exactly what I was talking about. If you're working on a project that you have to really pay attention to, it's nice to have a palette cleanser, something that's kind of just stockinette. And that was, or just, a rib or whatever, some easy thing that you don't have to think about. Like that pair of socks that I finished up last week. But now those are done, so I have been working on my Digger AT. For those of you who are new, again, this is an unpublished pattern, but will be coming out probably this summer, early summer, I'm hoping for. So I decided to work this one bottom up. I think this is the very first time I've ever designed a sweater bottom up. No, my friendship sweater, that's a child-size sweater. That is knit from the bottom up. And then the little one that the unicorn is wearing, if you're familiar with that, that's also a bottom up sweater. That sweater's got a lot going for it. It's bottom up, it's knit flat with color work. So it's interesting. It's a fun sweater to make. But anyway, I don't knit bottom up very often, but sometimes I do because of different reasons. For that one, it was because of the hood, which again, you can still do it top down, but I don't remember why I chose to do that one bottom up. And you can always reverse engineer it as a designer. You can knit it from the bottom up and still write the pattern from the top down. But sometimes, and I think this is why a lot of people do bottom up, sometimes you just want to start with the easy part. And this is the easy part of the Digger AT. This is the bottom. And this is the Bosque color. And I just love it. It's like a greenish, yellowish, brownish. And this is the Freetown fingering. Let's see if you can get a nice, it's hard to really tell. But it does, you can see that there's a little bit of a halo. This yarn has a little bit of a halo because it is a single ply, non-superwash merino. So I have this in my mind about how I want this t-shirt to be. And I've got it all mapped out. I just haven't knit it yet. But it's a very, very basic t-shirt that can be embellished. And I thought it would be fun to publish the pattern with a few optional embellishments. So I'll be talking more about that as I get further and I can show it to you. But I got it in my mind. And, when it's plain like this, when the base of it is plain, there's a lot of different things you can do to embellish it. I mean, that's true of a regular t-shirt, but when it comes to a knitted t-shirt, there's a lot of things that you can do. So, all right. Okay, topic of the week. All right, this week, we're gonna be talking about mending sweater holes. My good friend who I went to college with, Siobhan. Hi, Siobhan. It's funny because that's the college where I went is where I took my daughter to go look. And so I ran into people. And one of the people I ran into was Siobhan's cousin. Isn't that random? Anyway, not relevant to the story. Siobhan was telling me that she had knit my James sweater a couple years ago and the moths got at it. And I thought to myself, this is a problem. Holes in sweaters are different from holes in socks for a couple reasons. Holes in socks happen because of wear, right? Either in the toe or on the bottom. That's a wear hole. And to fix that, you can either re-knit it or you can knit a patch. And it's a sock, it's the bottom of a sock. You don't really care if it's another color, that kind of adds to the character of the sock. But holes in sweaters, usually they can be caused by multiple things, but very often it is a moth hole or something like that. I don't feel like we have any moths. And a couple of years ago on the podcast, this might have been back when it was an audio podcast, I talked about holes in sweaters. And I think it is silverfish because I think that they will eat a hole in a sweater. I'm not 100% positive about that. And we don't have a real silverfish problem, but every now and then I do find holes in things. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what has happened there, but my Audrey sweater, this is my original one that is knit out of Madeline Tosh Vintage, I believe. I think this is the farmhouse colorway. And in the camera, you can sort of tell the different skeins. You know, you can see that a little bit. Because I'm not a huge alternator when it comes to hand-dyed yarn. Like, I will alternate for a short time, but I'm not gonna alternate the whole sweater. I'm just not, unless for some reason you have to. Like, if it's gonna look really obviously, blatantly weird, then I will do it. But anyway, I have a hole right here, and it's not unraveled at all. This is the right side. It's not unraveled at all, but I haven't worn it, obviously, because it has this hole in it. And I love this sweater. It's just a great sweater. Like I said, this is my Audrey sweater, which is the first one in the Audrey Hepburn collection. And I love this sweater and I want to wear it. So I researched a few different ways to mend a hole in a sweater, and I'm going to put that video in right here. Okay, folks. So I have turned my sweater inside out. There is my hole. You can see it spans 2 rows. And I have done some research on how to make this an invisible fix. And I'm going to be using blue thread for a couple reasons. Partly so that you can see it, and also partly because I don't think it will matter that the thread is blue, because it's all going to be on the inside. So first thing is I'm going to thread this needle. Now I'm going to be using a single ply. I'm not going to double it over. This is probably too long. I'm so used to using a really long piece of thread, but I'm just going to go ahead and tie this in a knot, a single knot, not the way I would normally do a knot for sewing, but just a regular little knot. Whoop, sorry. And then what I'm going to be doing here is just picking up, I'm going to start up here, and I'm just going to pick up a part of the fiber in kind of a running stitch. Can you see that? In kind of a running stitch manner, all right? And I'm gonna pull all the way through, and it should catch on my knot. I'm not gonna do anything really very tightly. All right, and now I'm going to kind of go back across there, do the same thing. Now this is really not very difficult because it is a worsted weight yarn. That's like a little tail right there, so I'll just cut that off later. With a fingering weight yarn, you know, you're gonna have to, I guess, just grab a little bit less fiber because there just is less fiber. Oh, we saw that coming. Raise your hand if you saw that coming. I see, it's my little tail. Well, as usual, we're doing this Bob Ross style where we're just kind of trying it out and we're doing it up, not as experts, but as, you know, fellow knitters who are trying to learn something. All right, and I'm just basically going to keep doing this all down the hole. My daughter, we had a lot of time to talk in the car on our way to Ohio, and one of the things she told me was she saw this meme about, oops, now I just pulled it right out, pulled my needle right out. Let me go ahead and pull that through and I'll rethread my needle. One of the things, a meme that she saw was if Bob Ross and Gordon Ramsay switched places. And Bob Ross was like, is that chicken underdone? Don't worry about it. That's just a happy little accident. And then, and Gordon Ramsay being like, do these trees look happy to you? Oh gosh, all Gordon Ramsay related jokes are funny. Okay, so we're just gonna keep going, and I'm kind of doing it running stitch style, like I said, coming in and out of the fibers. There. Now I kind of wish I had some scissors up here to cut that off because it keeps getting in the way. But we're just gonna continue to pick up the back side of these fibers. And the reason why this thread color doesn't matter is because all of this is happening in the back. Now, once we get to the bottom part of, our hole here, I'm gonna go down to this row. What we have essentially done, I can never remember in weaving what's the warp and what's the weft, but we've done the horizontal weaving. And now we're gonna go back and do, this is the warp. We did the weft first. Now we're gonna do the warp. It doesn't really matter what you do first. It's just we're gonna go one way and then we're gonna turn around and go the other way. And you can tell that I'm just not pulling anything tight. And you can kind of go in and out of your thread. I think Charlotte has found her roller skates. I don't know if you can hear that. All right, so we're just gonna kind of weave in and out of what we have already done. And you know, I did a lot of research on the best way to fix a hole in the sweater. And so I looked at a lot of things, and there's a lot of clever stuff out there where somebody has done this clever thing to make a patch, but I don't want it to look like a patch on a sweater. Like on a sock, we can patch that all day long. That's gonna add to the character. But in my beautiful Audrey Hepburn sweater, I just want there to not be a hole. So I chose this method. And I think while it might not be totally necessary, just for my own edification, I'm just gonna, since I have more thread, I'm just gonna continue to do this a little bit more. Like I said, this is Madeline Tosh Vintage, which is a superwash worsted. And the superwash, you know, is more likely to come unraveled than a yarn that is toothier. But, and let's see, since I have a little bit more and I can, let's just go ahead and do a little bit more of the weft also. This is fun. It's very meditative. Now, hopefully it doesn't show on the other side. That's the moment of truth right there, is when we flip it over. But yeah, if you Google or go on YouTube and type in how to fix a hole in a knitted sweater, you find a lot of stuff like this where you're doing something on the backside, but you do find a lot of other little clever things that may be, you know, interesting, but aren't necessarily useful if you don't want the hole to show. I mean, if you don't want the fix to show. So I'm just gonna go through and kind of tie this off a little bit. And there it is. There's our fix. You can see it a little bit, but not much. I think that it's pretty invisible, and it, you know, it has been pretty much taken care of. So in my, you know, knowing that I was going to be doing that today, when my daughter pointed out to me that the sock I was wearing had a hole in the top of it, I thought maybe we should fix that too. So, gosh, this is a couple holes. Is it this one or this one? I was wearing this sock earlier. Here it is. I'm going to show you this hole again in the video once I resume the other video. But I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to just tie, not a typical sewing knot. This one I'll do a little closer to the end of the thread so I don't have that little tail that annoys me. Okay, so I'm going to turn my sock inside out. Now for this, gosh, I'm sorry, I keep bumping into that. For this, I'm going to use a darning egg, and I actually got this from Lidl. Remember how I talked about the thing that I got from Lidl, the little knitting tools? I found this in a sewing and ironing, and I don't exactly remember, thing from Lidl, but it's just a darning egg. Probably the best thing to do would be to secure it. I don't know. But I'm just going to go ahead and try and do the exact same thing here. Now this is a fingering weight yarn, and this has come unraveled a little bit. Do you know what I want to do before I do that? Since we're Bob Rossing it, let's go ahead and just okay, you can see that it has come undone a little bit. The Audrey sweater really had not, I just don't have any tools up here. I think I'm going to hold off on this one because I don't have the tools right now to fix it. But maybe next week we can just fix that a little bit. Although, I don't know, it's a sock. Maybe I'll just patch it. I don't know. This sock has a couple. No, it's this other one where it's got a couple places. These are my modern rainbow socks, but right here, it's another place where it's on, this one's on the bottom of the foot, so that's partly a wear hole. But anyway, there you have it. All right, that brings us to the word of the week. Yes, that segment is back. This week, we're gonna talk about the word mend. So often when I look into a word that is relevant to knitting, you find all of the other ways that that word is relevant. So around 1200, the word mend came into the English language, meaning to repair. Typically clothes, tools, buildings. To mend it is to repair it. Also to remove defects from something broken, defaced, deranged, or worn. Now I think I don't know what the word deranged means, because I think of deranged as meaning like crazy, but maybe it has another meaning. This is from a shortened form of Old French, amender, A-M-E-N-D-E-R, meaning to correct, set right, make better, or improve, such as amends. Like to make amends is to repair a relationship or a problem with a person. To mend is to put right, to atone for, to amend, or even to repent. Mending and repentance is mending the relationship of the person to God. And that's about 100 years later, about 1300. The phrase on the mend came in much later. That is attested by 1802 as, recovering from sickness or improving in condition to be on the mend. So that's interesting, isn't it? Like words connect and you just don't think about it, like to make amends and to mend. So I also had this hole in this sock, and I think I'm probably going to also have sewn this up for you in the last video. But this is the top of the sock. Like here's the bottom. Bottom looks just fine, but the top of the sock has a hole in it, and that's what makes me think that it is, I don't know what it is, some kind of a bug or something. And thinking about mending, it feels good to mend stuff. How often in our culture do we just throw something away and buy a new one because it's easy to do? Just last week, our refrigerator broke, and it was extremely painful for me because we had spent more on that refrigerator than we had ever spent on a refrigerator before. And we'd had it like 8 years and it broke. And I was just so annoyed. I said to my husband, I'm like, how many times when you were a kid, do you remember getting a new appliance? Like never, almost never, because they just worked. And it's just a bummer that so much is just trashed these days. I like to accept objects where they are as much as I can. Recently, I noticed that my fitted sheet for our bed, the elastic is totally worn out. Like there's no stretch to it at all. But I was like, you know what? For hundreds of years, people would use a flat sheet as a fitted sheet. So I'm just gonna tuck it and go on with my life. I'm not gonna stress over the fact that the elastic is gone. I'm not gonna put new elastic in because I could do that, but I'm not going to. I'm just not gonna spend my time doing that, but I'm just gonna accept it where it is. And there are other things that it's almost like a challenge for me not to get rid of. My mother-in-law, and I might have talked about this before, my mother-in-law gave me a bathrobe the year my husband and I were engaged, so 22 years ago. And it was a really nice bathrobe, like the terry cloth kind that you put on when you get out of the shower and you're wet, like it's a towel, but it's a robe. And it has come apart in different places, and I have sewed it back up, and I've mended it, and I've even re-dyed it because it was this pale, it originally was pale pink, and then it got kind of dingy. So I re-dyed it this bright pink. And so it's like a challenge, like how long can I keep this thing going? But it's nice to do that. It feels good to mend things. And so when I was thinking about Siobhan's sweater, I was thinking the amount of money that knitters put into the yarn for a project and the amount of time that we put into the project means that we need to fix it when it is broken. And now I don't know how many moth holes there were with Siobhan's sweater. With mine, there's only the one hole. And, you know, you do get to a point where you're like, well, is this even worth saving? And, you know, that does exist. But if it's not too bad, you can sew them up. Give it a try because it's worth it, especially if you knit it yourself. Okay, moving on to the comments. So last week I talked about the mini set coming this week, and Danielle said, I can't wait for the mini set. You're wonderful for offering them on pre-order so we don't have to feel stressed about missing out on the RTS ones. Ready to ship? Excited to see the colors in minis to get an idea of what I would want in full skeins. And that is nice. This is my cast of characters, folks. So I want them to be something that you can come back to and say, what, you know, be able to put things together. Wouldn't it be great if I had like a color card? That would be great. I've floated that idea past my own mind before, but I really need to get on that. A color card would be really nice where you could just open it up and see, like Brooklyn Tweed has a color card. But anyway, it's nice to have all the colors so that you can put them together and see what goes with what. Jean Ellis said, oh, Devin, you're such a sweet baby. Congratulations on surviving another trip around the sun, and congratulations on being halfway to 90. Celebrated my 45th birthday a week and a half ago, and so many people said congrats on being halfway to 90, which I loved because that's exactly what my husband said. If I make it to 90, that would be amazing. That would be just great. Okay, Yarn Creations podcast, who is Adele, said, hi, Devin. I find the discussion on 4-strand color work interesting. I would probably knit with the 2 top colors first and slip the stitches in the other 2, and then knit the same row with the other 2 colors and slip the stitches worked in the first 2. Wow, did your brain just explode a little bit? So basically what she's saying is to get around holding 4 colors stranded, to hold 2 colors stranded every other row, and then slip the stitches mosaic style to get the color you want. Wow, that is genius. I love it. Okay, she says, I think color dominance is more of an issue in Fair Isle knitting with small patterning than stranded color work in large motifs. In my opinion, and I thought this was a really good point, I didn't even think about this, she said, the 4-color management would be more difficult in a toothy yarn because the strands are constantly sticking to each other. That is genius. I didn't even think about that, but that is totally, totally true and a good point. She said, I'm an English style knitter / thrower and therefore find the yarn guides or rings difficult to work with. That makes sense. Interesting. You guys come up with things I didn't think about, and I love that. Jessica Coverdale said, "It was so fun watching you pair those minis with the navy. I was sitting there oohing and eyeing at the TV as you made sets. And I believe that color work with however many colors is for the people with patience." I get it, girlfriend. She says, "I am not a patient person and hardly make it through 2 colors without tossing down my work and letting anyone within earshot know that I am done." The sweater is beautiful and maybe someone will just make it for me. Yes, I get it. I get it. I get it for sure. Stevens Defense Academy says, "I love the new navy color. How about Maristella for its name? It would be a little nod to Mary, since blue is her color, and go along with the sea and ocean theme." That is a great suggestion. However, I have used Maristella in the past, not for my own yarn, but when I was collaborating with someone in the past, she asked me to name it and I named it Maristella, and that's just in my head as that color from now until eternity, I guess. Sarah from Baker Street Knits says, "Happy birthday, Devin. I love that new blue. Blues are my jam, and you've got so many gorgeous ones between that, frost, and beryl. Admiral might be a good name for it too. Makes me think of the dark blue jacket that they wear, and it still has kind of a nautical theme that you seem to be leaning towards." Yes, I do. All of these names are so good. I should have just linked them all together. No, that wouldn't work. Selfish Knitter, Colleen says, "Devin, that navy blue looks great with your other colors. I especially like it with Fontaine and Bosque. I can relate to Karen's story from last week. My swatches have lied to me too. Live and knit and learn." Amen, sister. Linda Tigalar said, "Hi, love today's podcast. If anyone notices the difference in colors on my sweater, they are too close. I'm sure they would notice all my gray hairs first. Looking forward to the t-shirt. I want to make a few for summer too." Yes, I got a couple comments like this, and I think we need to form a support group. Like the people who just think that crazy nuance is not something that we need to strive for. If you see the difference in the color dominance and the popping, and that makes you happy, go for it all day long. Yes. But if you just don't care, like I just don't care, like it's fine, then it's fine. Does anybody follow Stasia Savasuk? I don't know if I follow her anymore, but she does a lot of fashion stuff. And she says, "It goes if I say it goes." And I'm like, it looks good if I say it looks good. If I'm happy in it and I feel good about it, then it looks good. End of story. Lana Dubinsky said, "Devin, happy birthday. Hope it was wonderful and best wishes. Thank you so much for saying that you don't care about the color dominance thing when doing color work. I have read about it and looked at samples that were supposed to demonstrate color dominance and the differences. And you know what? I just don't see any difference. So thank you so much for reminding me that it's okay to do what I want, especially when I don't see the difference. I think the problem I run into with knitting is that I always want to do the right thing." I think Lana has hit on something very important here. "I think it stems from being a math person and an engineer by training. That's the opposite of me, but that could definitely be it. We are trained to always find the right answer. I sometimes frequently forget that not everything has a right answer. Sometimes you just do what you like and that's the right answer. Thanks again, as always, a wonderful and very enjoyable podcast." This happens a lot with knitters, where we feel like there's this one right thing that we're supposed to do, and if we veer from that in any way, then we're doing it wrong. Especially if you are in a group, there can be a little bit of judginess or one-upsmanship, pointing things out. And, that was something that I didn't see at all at my retreat because my knitters are amazing. But it's possible, you do see that. And we see it online too, where people want to have the tip and the trick and they want to share things. And there's a lot of good tips and tricks out there. But do what you want. Like, you don't have to do it the certain way just because someone else says that that's the way to do it. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to knit the thing. Melissa Emery said, I can't wait to see how the t-shirt looks. I've never knit clothes, but I want to make a tee. Yes, me too. Kara Overman says, someday I will send a story, but I did want to mention another use for the knitting thimble. I never used it for knitting because I just learned how to knit in the spring of 2020. That was a good time to pick up knitting. However, I've been crocheting for over 50 years. After breaking my wrist, I was not about to stop crocheting, but I was having trouble with tension. The yarn thimble or yarn guide helped allow the yarn to flow so that I could continue crocheting. Awesome. Okay. GMA Barb 7813 said, can you please talk more about changing needle sizes for the type of yarn? Sure. Basically, needle sizes, the difference in needle size will change the fabric that you get. Take that to the extreme to get an idea of what I'm talking about. If you knit with teeny tiny lace weight yarn and big, huge needles, you're going to get this very flowy, holey fabric. On the flip side, let's pretend you've got really, really big, fat, chunky yarn and tiny little needles. It's going to be so dense that first of all, you can barely work it, and then it's going to be like unbendable. So you want to use approximately the right size of needle to go with your knitting. Now, there are some times when that does not apply, like when you're knitting toys. With toys, you want to knit it slightly more tightly than you would for like a sweater, because you want to keep the stuffing or the poly beads or whatever is inside the animal. So that is one instance where you would want to use a smaller needle than you normally would. You know, like for fingering weight yarn, I use usually between a US 1 and a US 3, maybe 4. For DK weight yarn, I tend to gravitate toward a US 5. For worsted weight yarn, I tend to gravitate toward a 7. You know, I mean, if you're trying to get gauge, it's kind of just a good place to start. Also, you know, the needle size suggested in the pattern is a good place to start. But if you know yourself and you know that you're a looser knitter or a tighter knitter, that you might have to adjust your needle size. Does that help? It's just kind of the basic idea of it. Some other suggestions for the blue. Jean Ellis suggested Perfection. Lucia Evangelo, ooh, what a beautiful name, suggested Azul, which means blue in Portuguese. Jen V said, what about number 13? That's a good one. Or Baker's Dozen. Someone else suggested Baker's Dozen. Lois Marie Todd suggested Night Sky. And Ellen Senko sent me a couple on Instagram, and they were all good. Amalgamate. I love that, but it makes me think of like amalgamated steel or whatever, although that would be good too, which makes me think of like Reardon Steel and like Ayn Rand. Okay. Fuse, Coalesce. These are all great sweater names too. Mingle and Merge. These are all amazing words. I took a screenshot when she sent me that and like saved it because just good words, good words. All right, moving right along to Knitting Fantasies. Okay, I decided to check out a few knitted t-shirts because t-shirts are things we wear all the time. And when I think of a knitted t-shirt, I don't think of, for example, the thing that I'm wearing right now. Even though I guess it is kind of a t-shirt, this I would call a short sleeve sweater. And one of the t-shirts I picked, I would not call a t-shirt. And that's really just in my own mind. I mean, this, you know, it's just a word you can use in many different ways. But when I think of a t-shirt, I think of something very basic that you want to have in your wardrobe as a basic piece. My first pick is from Annie's Catalog, which is a website that seems to have a lot of knitting and sewing and things on it. I'd never even been on this website before, although maybe I have. I think they have a monthly box that I got Gigi one year for Christmas. It's like a craft box. Anyway, this is called the Odell t-shirt and it's $6.99. The yarn that they use to make this Oh, the pattern comes in 8 sizes. The yarn looks really thin in the picture, but frankly, I feel like it's not. This is a DK weight. This yarn is Barocco Mykonos, which is discontinued. You can't get it anymore. It's a linen, cotton, nylon blend. And the cotton is like a trace amount. It's 66% linen, 26% nylon, and 8% cotton. So it's mostly linen, which gives it a really nice feel and a really good drape, but it is discontinued. So, you know, you can make it with whatever you want. You can use 100% wool if you want to. I am going to be knitting my Diggory tee in a couple different wool options, but you can use whatever you want. Use cotton, use linen. The choices are endless. Anyway, now my second pattern, while it doesn't fit my definition of a knitted t-shirt, I love it. And it is a crochet pattern. This is the Louise T crochet pattern, and it is so cute. There are lots of examples in the listing that I'm going to be putting up as I'm talking. So lots of people have knit this. This allows you to see it in a lot of different sizes and a lot of different yarn choices and color choices. The first one was my favorite, it's a little bit cropped and it's got those very warm stripes of the kind of yellows and oranges and just so 70s. The crochetedness of it is 70s. The colors are 70s. It has a little bit of a puff in the sleeve, which looks like from all of the projects that you could either downplay or upplay, but it's just so cute. I love this. I really want to make it. I just think it looks like so much fun. I crocheted some hats a couple years ago, and that was really fun. Crocheting garments is delightful. I really enjoy doing it. The construction is so different from knitted things. And when I look at the waistband on this, I think you work it like this, right? And you just take it as long as you want, and then you connect it, and there's your waistband. And then you're gonna pick up and go around, guessing if it's bottom up. I don't know how this is crocheted. And so it's just a different kind of construction. Super cool. My last pick is a free pattern, and it looks crazy simple. Strangely enough, this looks like a worsted, and my first pick, which was the Odell t-shirt, looked like a fingering weight, but they're both DK. I don't know why that is. But this is called the Fade to Summer Gradient t-shirt from Yarnspirations, and it's knit in a very affordable yarn, Patton's Grace, which you can get at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or something like that. It is a DK weight cotton, and it looks super simple. It looks like it would work up crazy fast. Looks like to me, it's just bottom up, no shaping, separate for the sleeves, and then join at the top, no shaping. It's basically just a rectangle. So very simple. You know, it's a good start. And no shaping has pluses and minuses. You kind of have to do a couple of them to see if you like it or if it works for your body type. If you have if you're like an apple shape, body shape, I think this would not be the type of sweater for you. You're gonna want something that has some shaping in it. But there are a lot of people who would look great in this. So you kind of have to decide. And also, you know, the color, and there's so many things that go into making a sweater look good. But anyway, it is a free pattern if you wanted to try that. And this is the part of the show where I would normally do my So Here's What Happened, but nobody sent me one. So please send me a story, because this is embarrassing. It's not really embarrassing, but please send me a story. You have a knitting story. I know that you do. Or something funny happened, or something ridiculous happened, or something sad happened, or something heart-wrenching happened. And if you would like to share it on the podcast, I would be more than happy to read it for you, or you can send me a video or an audio recording. I would love to include it on the show. Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. It's Devin with an I. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope that you have an amazing week. I hope you have good weather like I do here, but if you have bad weather, I hope that you have wonderful knitting time and tea and dogs and just couches, and it's just all great. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week. Bye.